Hey Covenant, my name is Patrick Griffey, the Associate Director of Discipleship, and this is Wednesday Rewind. This past week, Pastor Darren talked about Jesus feeding the 5,000. Now, I'll be honest, I'm preaching this Sunday on Jesus walking on water, and as he started to go into that a little bit, I looked at Candace, I said, this is what I'm preaching on this week. But he just touched on it, so just as a teaser, please join us this Sunday as I bring the word as we look at Jesus walking on water. But that's sandwiched in between these two powerful stories of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes and multiplying it for the 5,000 plus people that are there. We see it described as 5,000 men, which means women and children weren't even counted. So we have no idea the size of this multitude. And on the other end of that, we get to see Jesus beginning to teach a little bit more about him being the bread of life. I think it's interesting, Darren went in on this a little bit, and that we have seen through these signs and wonders in our series ongoing that Jesus has done these incredible things of turning water into wine, healing people on the Sabbath. So he challenges kind of the Pharisees and the rulers of the time. Now he's fed the 5,000. Even when I'm looking at this Sunday of him walking on water, these are miraculous things that are taking place. And people are paying attention and they're seeing these things and they're wondering what's going on. They really want to follow Jesus, but they don't really know what that quite means. They want to follow him around, but in terms of following him, they don't really know who he is. And so Jesus goes into a little bit of that at the end of John 6, and we're going to read that. And we're actually going to read the response that he has because people start to desert him after his teaching. He's telling people like, hey, you've got to eat my body, drink my blood. Obviously, for those of us in the church, we know what he's talking about in terms of communion or the Eucharist. But for people outside of that, it's really interesting. In the first century, Romans thought Christians were cannibals because they talked about eating God's body, drinking his blood. Those are things that can be very confusing if you don't know what we're talking about. And so the disciples, not the 12 that we're familiar with, but others start to desert him because of this teaching. Again, to this point, he's done these amazing things, these miraculous healings, he's fed people, and now he starts to teach. So this is John 6. We're going to start at verses 60, and we're going to read through 69. On hearing it, many of his disciples said, "This is a hard teaching. Who can accept it?" Aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, "Does this offend you? Then what if you see the Son of Man ascend to where he was before? The Spirit gives life. The flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit and life. Yet there are some of you who do not believe." For Jesus had known from the beginning which of them did not believe and who would betray him. He went on to say, "This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled them." From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. "You do not want to leave too, do you?" Jesus asked the 12. Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God." At this point, with all the miracles Jesus has been performing, people have begun to follow him because they want to see what he's going to do next. They want to receive the healing. They want to receive the bread. But then he starts to talk about the bread of life. What does that really mean? And so disciples start to leave because they're not sure what that means either. And I think in our culture, there's this thought that I've talked about before, and the phrase is moralistic, therapeutic deism. And to spell that out, deism is just the belief that a God exists. Moralistic would mean that he wants us to do good things, and therapeutic, because of us doing those good things, we feel good. And so it's really this thought that God exists to reward our good behavior with helping us feel better. And that is unfortunately the reality for a lot of people, that's what they think Christianity is. Just that we're supposed to do good things, and we feel good about it, and we're rewarded by God for that. But that's not the case. And up until this teaching in John 6, I think many people that are following Jesus could perhaps fall into that. They're getting to see all these awesome things. They're getting to see healings. But then Jesus starts to actually teach. And what he's teaching is offensive. And we read that. He says, at verse 60, on hearing it, many of his disciples said, "This is a hard teaching. Who can accept it?" Aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, "Does this offend you?" He recognizes that this is going to offend people. And so he starts to naturally separate the people that are following him for the wrong reasons for the people that are following for the right reasons. And we see Peter affirm this. He says, well, where else are we going to receive life from? So I am going to be going way more into depth on that this Sunday as we look at Jesus walking on water and what that means. There are lots of things that we can take from him walking on water, and we'll be looking at different levels of what that meant, not only to the disciples at that time as fishermen, as Jews, but then to us in 2025 as Christians.